Hello. Now, as promised, I will be returning today with another Hindenburg commentary. Now, I feel like I was a bit too harsh on the Hindenburg in the last commentary because I almost give off the impression that I consider it a bad ship, which I of course don't. If I thought the Hindenburg was a bad ship, I would straight up say so, and it's been one of my favorite ships for a long time. Now, one of my main issues with the AP being so inconsistent on the Hindenburg is the fact that as long as the AP is inconsistent, even against what is perceived fairly flat broadside targets, it becomes very tempting to use HE instead. And using HE constantly on the Hindenburg is, well, it doesn't really feel like the Hindenburg, does it? And in fact, becoming a HE spammer, you kind of get the feeling why I'm not just playing the Zao instead. And I don't like that. In fact, that's one of the reasons I disliked the HE buff back in the day that increased the fire chance and the HE damage, was because it buffed what a feature that I never really leveled the Hindenburg to begin with. I never leveled the Hindenburg to become an HE spammer. It was always about the AP. But for some reason, there's this perceived notion that the Hindenburg HE is very weak. And in fact, I saw some comments regarding Hindenburg, how if you angle against the Hindenburg becomes powerless. Well, this is a comment I've seen parroted a fair amount by some people, and that's absolutely ridiculous. Now, okay, yes, the Hindenburg HE is weaker than the Moin Moskva Zao HE. It has a base damage of 2500 compared to Zao's 3400. It's a significant difference. But on the other hand, even when not running reload mod, it reloads much faster than Zao. At 10-second reload compared to Zao's 13.7. There's a massive difference. So the idea that the HE is useless is absolutely ridiculous. That's something I will never agree with. In fact, I have always, ever since the release of the line, I have recommended Demolition Expert. Now, I have multiple times admitted that the AA on the ship is fantastic. I've even made AA tests where I've featured just how strong the AA on the Hindenburg is. So the fact that I'm willing to give up that increased range for Demolition Expert should tell you that there is no chance of the HE being weak or powerless or useless. In fact, this game right here that I'm showing you, I am fully focused on HE simply for demonstrative purposes to show you just how weak the so-called HE on the ship is. Now, when you run Demolition Expert, you get 16% fire chance. It's not as impressive as something you might reach on the Moskva on the Zao, but I'm running the range module here for the sake of just going full, pure, long range DPM on this ship. And just constantly, as much as I can, just spamming shells. HE using the increased range, of course, you get 20.7, I think it is. So, very long range, and while it's not as easy to land these shells as the heavier shells of the Zao or Moskva, because they don't lose as much velocity in midair, it's not that hard to hit battleships with these shells at all. So I'm just going to be constantly spamming it, and that's a Witherer. That was, what, 1558? So that's a 4-minute Witherer. That's literally a 4 minutes into the game, of which more than a minute I couldn't even see any opponents. So that's how quick that Witherer was farmed. That's how ridiculously quickly that Witherer was farmed. I mean, even defeating that in any other ship, I'd consider it quite a challenge. Like, even reaching Witherer that quickly, I'd consider it a challenge. And you can see the numbers are just ticking up. If you look at the top right, my damage none. That's because this rate of fire more than enough compensates for the HE damage itself and the reduced chance of fires. Because you spam 12 shells every 10 seconds, and each of these shells have a 16% chance. So when you constantly spamming with this great accuracy and this, well, fantastic range, especially if you run this, it becomes insane. Now, this is of course running the range mod. My recommended build straight up runs the reload mod, in which case you have 8.8 second reload. So the DPM on this HE is even more insane. far more insane, in fact. So the idea that someone could just turn their battleship or cruiser against this, if someone could angle against this, and you'd somehow become powerless or weak or anything similar, I consider that notion completely ridiculous. That's not going to happen. As long as you can spam shells at this rate, there is no way anyone could just ignore you. Or well, if they do, then they're gonna burn to the ground very, very, very quickly. Now I'm of course continuing the same. I'm using this range, and in fact I'm hiding behind islands here, very Des Moines-esque, just spamming shells over the island, just non-stop rain on top of them, and they can't even see me. This of course, for those that are wondering why am I running the range module, because I am running multiple commentaries on the Hindenburg in the following few days, and whenever I run multiple commentaries like this, or whenever I feel like recommending builds, I always like to test different builds and different setups so that I can actually feel confident recommending the build that I do, and knowing that I have tested the others and I know exactly what I'm recommending to my viewers, instead of just going, well, I tested it a year ago, it should still be the same, because that's never true. In fact, sometimes I change my builds, like an example was the Moskva, where I felt more comfortable going with the range mod than the reload mod. Now, if you're wondering what I'm doing here with the camera skewing like that, I'm tapping M to get a bird's eye vision on that Yamato behind the island so I can continue shooting him. Now, another thing of course is, do not take this as straight up endorsement of the range mod. This is still a test in progress, and in fact there are times when I've found this range mod to be just as situational as reload mod. There are times when I have been missing the reload mode quite a bit, especially when there have been more close range encounters. Just like not having the range mod is situational in terms of you not having enough range to reach your targets, having the range mod and not having the reload mode can also be situational when you get into this close range DPM fights, where of course the Hindenburg shines. When you get broadsides on targets, you do absolutely stupid amounts of damage, especially if stuff like Cyclone and things happen. I mean, pumping out 10-11k AP damage on the broadside of a Montana every 8.8 seconds isn't something to be underestimated, or well, any T10 battleship for that matter. So the purpose of this vid was nothing more than to just dispel the notion that this HE is weak, and to dispel the notion that somehow angling makes you powerless. You might have noticed the ships that I'm shooting here have been a Yamato and a Grosse Kurfürst, which are considered two of the tankiest ships in the entire game, and it's what, not even 9 minutes into the game, and I'm approaching 170k damage, and I've been shooting nothing but HE. Absolutely nothing but HE this entire time. I've just been burning both of these battleships to the ground, and there have been nothing they have been able to do. In fact, this is the first time in a long time they can even see me, because I've just been hiding behind the islands, spamming HE on them. Yamato turns to me, started a fire on the Kurfürst in between. Oh damn, he died, that's a shame. Was that a fire on the Yamato? I can't even tell. So many shells in the air, so much non-stop HE spam going on. I mean, this is 16 km away. At this point the reload mode would be better than having the range mode, but once again, both offer different kinds of flexibility, and now that I'm hitting the superstructure, you can see even the base damage isn't bad. But more importantly, there we go, our first fire already burning. Am I finally gonna get the kill? Now he repaired, which is of course perfectly fine by me. Rain of Fire continues. He switches targets. Does he think he can ignore me because I'm shooting HE? If he does, of course, I've already shown you exactly what happens. And you have, of course, having torpedoes as well makes it even easier to land these long-range shells, because you can adjust your aim based on the speed of the target. So tapping 3 every now and then, like I often do on the torpedoes, to assess the speed of the target makes it very easy to just drain this stuff. He turns his guns back to me, but well, there's already another fire on him. I just angle. Well, of course, angling against Yamato isn't exactly that useful, but maybe I can avoid the Citadel. I don't get the kill though, sadly. But I'm already at 200,000 damage, almost 199k. Nothing but HE. So you understand now when people tell me, when people make the claim that this HE is weak and that angling against the ship makes it useless, I tend to just scoff and laugh and consider them to be completely misinformed or not having given this AP a proper chance. And of course, the idea that the Hindenburg would be completely weak and completely situational, because this is also ridiculous. You can never make the Hindenburg completely useless. You can make it less useful by angling against it. That is without a doubt the truth. But even when angled, this HE can be extremely punishing. Of course, this is nothing compared to the actual DPM you can put out if you do get the broadside targets and you get to actually use your AP, which is your bread and butter. I'm actually tempted to see... one of the strengths, of course, in situations like this is that the torpedo angles on the ship are excellent. So I'm actually tempted to see if he's gonna give me... Is he gonna give me broadside? He's gonna sail into these torps. He's finally giving me broadside, which means I'm finally going for the shots. But I don't think he actually noticed my torps. No, he didn't, because the torp angles are so excellent. And he gets blasted out of the water quite easily. He launches both his spreads, but I'll be able to tank one without too many issues. There we go, popping the heel and recovering. So, well, it should be the end of the game. 998, 1000 points. And the game ends. 218k damage. Well, the last one was just the torps, honestly. But before that, 200k damage. Using nothing but HE, really. A really quick Witherer. I did top the scoreboard, only one kill sadly, since I didn't get any of those battleships. And more importantly, looking at the detailed report, a 12-minute game, easily breaking 200,000. And fire damage, 145,000 fire damage. So the idea, you understand now why I recommend Demolition Expert on the ship and why I consider this ship a threat in every situation. Yes, you can lower the threat level of the ship by angling against it, but the idea that you can make this ship powerless simply by angling against it is absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, as usual, I will be testing some other stuff on the Hindenburg, and once I'm done with this, I will make any changes to my recommended build if so needed. I'll talk to you guys later.